And we back. It's definitely been a minute since we've done a video like this. But recently, I have been inspired. A lot of y'all know I've been keeping up with baseball for the first time in a long time. Hence the hat is back. The hat, have you noticed that? Okay, one of the YouTubers I've been watching to keep up with baseball is Giraffe Neck Mark, and he has done a video very similar to this where he picks the most improved player from every single team so far this season. And this is something we used to do in the past, so shout out to Mark for putting the inspiration back. I'll put the link in the description if you want to keep up with baseball. But I'm giving you my most improved player from every single NBA team this season. Now, I know we're in the playoffs, so we got a whole plethora of games that I can use as my sample size, but I'm going to say I watch a ton of basketball. It's a huge part of my life. It's part of my job. But I'm not going to tell you, as a fan of a certain organization, you probably watch them more intently than I do. So this is my personal most improved list. But you can let me know in the comment section if I missed out on a guy that maybe I slept on this season, all right? Leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Let's get to the most improved from every NBA team. Starting off with the 76ers, the most improved player this season was Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris shut all those naysayers down because last year, let's give it a buck. He was a little bit overpaid. He got a lot of money for the production that he was getting out. And this season, he ramped it up. He ramped it up a lot. He was in all-star conversations. And last year in the playoffs, it was really bad. They got swept by the Boston Celtics. And he had to put this bigger backpack on because, well, they had a big injury in Ben Simmons. He did not perform well under that pressure. But now this year, it's a little less pressure. And he's blossoming in that first round. So Tobias Harris is back on his stuff, and he is the most improved player because he went from last year being alright to this year being good. Next, we got the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to say there are some teams out there that I think are hard to pick a most improved player. And what I found out, the teams that were hard to pick a most improved player were their veteran-led teams. You know, you'll see some of that later. But for the Milwaukee Bucks, I got Bobby Portis, man. I watched Bobby Portis for a few years here in Chicago. He was always a high energy, could get you a little bit of a bucket, you know, from the mid-range to the low post. But of course, it's 2021. Everybody expanding their game. I mean, he was an okay three-point shooter here in Chicago too, but he went from an okay three-point shooter to being in Milwaukee. And he like, hey, I'm the second best three-point shooter in the league statistically, by percentage. So, I mean, if you go from just being an okay three-point shooter to a really, really good three-point shooter, that's a W. He's kind of an enforcer. He's a little bit of crazy. He's very crazy, and he still gives you energy. Chicago Bulls kind of hard for me, man, because I wanted to give love to Zach LaVine, because obviously everybody knew last year that Zach LaVine was a bucket. He averaged like 25 points per game, but he was doing 25 on good efficiency. But in 2020-2021 season, he did like 28 on amazing efficiency. So I wanted to give him that. But I gave it to Thaddeus Young because I think he had the biggest leap for the Bulls. Because last year, when he was being coached by a guy that we do not say his name on this channel. He's been coached by a guy that we don't really mess with too much. He tried to turn Thaddeus Young, who had been in the league for 12 years at that point, into a stretch four. He's never done that before. And now in this season under Billy Donovan, he was able to play his own game, and he was really good at it. The Cavaliers last season, me and the homies on the podcast, which you should be watching, you know, had the conversations. We were going through advanced stats, and advanced stats don't tell the full story. Trust me, I'm an eye test / stats guy. But the advanced stats last season said that Darius Garland was the worst player in the NBA. This year they don't say that, so that's a huge improvement. I think his year 1 and year 2 improvement was amazing. Year 1, he kind of came into the NBA feet cold, not a lot of experience from college and all of that, and then this year he was really, really solid. But there's rumors coming out about the Cavs organization that maybe he's not safe. Him and Colin Sexton may not be safe. I have no idea, but he can hoop. The Celtics, this is pretty easy. It's Jaylen Brown. He went from a very good starter to an all-star player just like that. It's unfortunate he got injured right before the playoffs because I think it would have made some noise. I think the Boston Celtics could have made a little bit more noise than what they're making right now if Jaylen Brown was there. But everybody knows Jaylen Brown was one of those guys that should have been in the broader most improved player conversations. He got a max bag and everybody on Twitter was going crazy. He ain't done this, he ain't done that. He's showcasing. He was worth that money. The Clippers is one of the teams. The Clippers are one of the teams that I found it very hard to pick a most improved from the team. The guy I landed on was Marcus Morris. Now, you're looking at me like, Kenny, last season when Marcus Morris was in New York, he was averaging like 20 points per game on crazy efficiency. How can it be even more improved even though his numbers are down? Because when he got traded to the Clippers, he wasn't good for them. Keep it a buck. He wasn't good for them. He was not the guy that he was advertised when he was playing for the Knicks, right? Well, this season, he kind of got rid of the in-between, I'm trying to sauce you up like he was doing. And now he's like, I'm going to catch this spot in the corner. Thank you, Paul George, for the pass. And I'm going to hit the shot. And he hit a ton of catch and shoot threes this season. And that's kind of his role. I'm going to be kind of crazy, a little bit of an enforcer. I'm going to hit some threes, play some solid defense. And that's all they really need for him. With the Grizzlies, it is Kyle Anderson. There are a few guys from this team that I was really trying to figure out who was going to be the guy. But it had to be Kyle Anderson. He went from a guy that we always knew he was a solid defender. He was a good playmaker. He plays at his own pace. That's everybody always say that about Cat Anderson. He plays at his own pace. It's a fact. That's still true to this day. But this season, he incorporated more of an offensive game and more of a scoring game, just the playmaker he had been over the past previous seasons. And they always say this on the broadcast when the Grizzlies are playing. He had an injection or something about his shoulder. Now his jump shot is better. I mean, it doesn't look better, but it's falling way more than it ever had in his career. It's only because they be giving him like 10 seconds to shoot the ball. He's got the slowest jump shot of all time, but he's making them. He's making them. I think he went from 5 points per game to 13 or so points per game, and he's been a big part of why the Memphis Grizzlies make the playoffs. The Hawks, another team that was pretty interested because they had well, I want to make a whole video about the Hawks, but maybe that goes up on my other channel called Game. Link is in the description, because of course they made that big change throughout the regular season, getting rid of Lloyd Pearson, bringing in Nate McMillan. But the guy that I think was the most improved, even though he missed so much of the time, is DeAndre Hunter. Coming into his rookie season, he was a good defender, but I even think he elevated that to a great defender, and he became more of a threat on the offensive side of the ball as well. I can't wait till we see a full season of him. I think next year is going to be a good one, but even now in the playoffs, you're seeing him defensively clamp up on some really good offensive players in like Julius Randle and stuff. So his defense has always been there, and the offense is starting to come around too, so he's their most improved. The Heat was another team that was super hard to pick the most improved. Because everybody on the Heat was on this cloud nine, you know what I'm saying? Everybody on the Heat were so valuable when they went through that bubble run, right? Like Jimmy Butler was, people had him in top 7, top 8 player in the league at the time. Tyler Hero was an untouchable player. Duncan Robinson was almost an untouchable player. So like it's so hard to look at what they did last year and say that anybody improved. But if I had to pick a player, it has to be Kendrick Nunn. But Kendrick Nunn didn't improve from last season. This is one of the weird ones. I'm saying he improved throughout the season. Like he started off, if I'm not mistaken, the first 5, 6, 10 games of the season, he was bunts. He was absolute bunts. And then he started back to playing to the Kendrick Nunn that we saw in his full rookie season. I know it's kind of a cop-out, but I couldn't look at that roster and be like, okay, this player was better. Jimmy Butler was good, obviously. He was about the same as last season. Bam Adebayo was about the same as last season. Then everybody else around them seemed like they may have taken a step down. With the Hornets, I went with Scary Terry Rozier. Now, statistically, I don't know if he made that much of a jump, but I think his impact when his role got a lot better. He's always been a guy that's supposed to be the lead point guard, and he's had very, very good moments in that. Don't get me wrong. When that Boston Celtics run was really great. He's had good moments as a lead guard, but this year, they really 100% transitioned him to a shooting guard. And I think it opened up a whole world, not just for him, but for the Charlotte Hornets as a whole. You got LaMelo as your guard, and then you got Vontae. Both of these are really good playmaking guards. I can just get the ball, get a bucket, get the ball, get a bucket, get the ball, get a bucket. And he did a lot of that this season, and he was one of the reasons why they were in the conversation for the playoffs. I know they didn't officially make it, but they were in the realm, the play-in realm. The Jazz. I guess Mike Conley. Because I don't know if Mike Conley's advanced statistics are crazy. Advanced plus minus defensive numbers are crazy. But Mike Conley has always been about this good. You know, this is nothing surprising if you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan. But last year, his first year in Utah, he was bad for his standards. He was really bad for his standards. And now he has an all-star appearance under his belt. Can you believe that? Mike Conley, all-star player. So just for that alone, he's the most improved. The Kings. It's cool to see when your best player gets better, and he is your most improved. In this case, it is De'Aaron Fox. He has a serviceable jump shot nowadays. It took him a few years, and that's okay. He's still super, super young. He has a serviceable jump shot now, and that makes him way more dangerous because teams used to just sit off him 3 to 4 feet because we know he like the fastest in the league, close to it at least. We're going to a couple feet off of him. We're not going to allow him to drive to the basket. Now you're like, all right, I'm just going to take my lefty 3 and get out of here. Take my lefty 3 and get out of here. And that's going to open the game up so much more, not just for him, but for his entire team. The Knicks is Julius Randle. Don't look at the playoffs. This is not a playoff. This is not a playoff award. But when it comes to most improved player, he is winning the actual award. So, of course, he's making my video as well. The Lakers is an interesting team because when you play with LeBron and you play for a LeBron-led team, you have to just play a role. There's no getting better. There's no getting worse. You're playing a role. But if I had to pick a player, and I know statistically it may not agree with me with this, but the eye test tells me Kyle Kuzma is a better player because he's more impactful than when he or if he can make baskets. Like there was a game in the playoffs early. There was a game in the playoffs a couple days ago, and I think Kyle Kuzma even tweeted about this. He shot like 2 for 7, 2 for 9, which is bad from the field, but he helped them win that game. In the first couple years of Kyle Kuzma's career, you couldn't say that. He was like, if I'm not giving you a bucket, I'm not really contributing. But now he's a better defender. He's a smarter player. So a 2 for 7, 2 for 9 can still end up being a good game for Kyle Kuzma. That is an extreme improvement. The Magic. Can I get a incomplete, please? Because they got injuries of Markelle Fultz early in the season. John Ice didn't play a lick of basketball because he tore his ACL in the bubble. And then they traded their whole starting five. I can even tell you. Once they got rid of Vucevic and all these other guys, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna count on watching Orlando Magic game. So I don't. Orlando Magic fans, let me know who improved the most on your team, because I couldn't tell you. I can even give you a fake answer, because the guy that I like on your team is Cole Anthony, and he didn't improve because he's a rookie. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. The Mavericks, it is Jalen Brunson, who is a good rookie. And then got better. I mean, it's kind of a cop-out to pick a sophomore, because in most situations, sophomore players get better, but not in all situations. So I'm going to say Jalen Brunson because he improved his game over all assets. Like, I trust him way more now than I did last season, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. The Nets. Is it possible to say that a superstar quality player improved even more because it's Kyrie Irving? We all know Kyrie's a bucket getter. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but he had 50, 40, 90 this season. You know, that's a very, very, and I mean a very, very exclusive club. I don't know how many shots is seeing him take this season where I feel like it was not going in. Kyrie Irving is that nice of a player. He's very nice, fans. So be nice to him. You know what I'm saying? He's a joy to watch. So respect him if you get one. You see where I'm talking about here, right? The Nuggets, it is Michael Porter Jr. I think he's in the final three. Actually for most improved player, which he should be. We all knew that Michael Porter Jr. was a bucket getter when he came out of college at Mizzou, but everybody was afraid of his injuries, and that's why he fell so much in the draft. Shout out to the Denver Nuggets for taking the chance. They had nothing to lose. It was a low-risk, high-reward, and they're reaping the benefits of that reward because this man is a bona fide stud. High arc and jump shot. He's already 6'10". He's jumping. He's similar guy to Kyrie Irving when I say that I don't see many shots from him that I feel like aren't going in, and they're also super tough shot taker and makers. The Pacers is Doug McDermott. Doug McDermott was an absolute bucket coming into the NBA, and that's why the Bulls traded to get him. Yep, traded Yusuf Nurkic and Gary Harris, if you did not know, on draft night for Doug McDermott. He didn't become the player that we thought he was going to be. And in Indiana, he's not the star player that maybe some people saw him to be, but he's definitely found a home, because I think early in his career, people pigeonholed him to a three-point shooter. I'm coming off a screen, I'm gonna shoot a three. And now he's doing a little bit more of everything. And if there's any bright spots from the Indiana Pacers season, because I know it's been a dreadful one for Pacers fans, is that Doug McDermott took last year's season, which was a very good one for him, and grew on that as well. But now that I think about it, I don't know if he's a free agent this offseason. Guess we'll find out. The Pelicans. This was tough. This was really, really tough, because Zion improved dramatically. I know statistically he still averaged about the same amount of points, but he went from a guy that, yes, he was good and putting up a lot of stats to like, oh, this guy's a legitimate a take over a game type dude. So I want to give him love, but instead I'm giving it to Lonzo Ball because he had never been a good three-point shooter, and every single season he worked at it. Changed the what's the word I'm looking for? Functionality? What is the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, there's an actual word to like, he changed his jump shot. You remember he was like this with it? It's still a little bit to his other side, but it's a lot more fluid, and he is a respectable three-point shooter now. Me and the guys always say this. He's one of the few 3-and-D point guards in the league. Like Patrick Beverly fits this as well, I guess. But he's a 3-and-D point guard that's gonna make a lot of money this offseason. Pistons. It is Jeremy Grant. I don't need to explain to you why Jeremy Grant is a guy. Same thing with Julius Randle. This guy's actually in top 3 because he went from a guy in Denver where he was a role player, 4th, 5th option, to being the number 1 option, and doing it pretty efficiently for a guy that he's never had that role before. The Raptors, I'm giving it to Chris Boucher, even though I don't know if Chris Boucher necessarily improved. I think he got more opportunity because in the small spurts that we got from him last season, we saw that he can get buckets. We saw that he can shoot. We saw he can be a shot blocker. He's not I wouldn't say he's a good defender yet, but he can block shots. There's a difference. I know it's confusing, but it's a difference from being a really good defender to being just a shot blocker, because he gets in so much foul trouble, and that's part of being a good defender. You know what I'm saying? He got more opportunity this season, and he put up really good numbers. The Rockets is Christian Wood. He was the favorite early into the season, got some injury troubles, and the Rockets went on a 77 game losing streak. It was a 19. It was a really long losing streak. Kind of fell out of contention for most improved player, but he did go from a guy that was averaging like 12, 13 points per game to like 20 something. So that's really impressive. The Spurs. It could have been Keldon. It could have been a few players, but the guy that I wanted to highlight was Jakob Poeltl. Because I don't watch the Spurs as much as some of the other teams. So whenever I do watch them, and when I did watch them before they got eliminated from playoff contention, I was always super impressed with Jakob Poeltl's ability to be a great positional defender. A great positional defender at the center position is so important for team success, and he's still super young. So I don't know if he was doing the same things last season. I'm just gonna assume that he wasn't at this level, because when I watch him, I'm usually really impressed. So I'm gonna say he's the most improved, even though like Keldon Johnson could have got some love, even Lonnie Walker. There are a lot of players, because the Spurs are still a relatively young team, even with DeMar DeRozan being there, which he might not be there for much longer. Next, we have the Suns. I'm adding those 8 games in the bubble onto this season, Cameron Payne, because we didn't know if that 40% shooting and like 40% from 3 shooting that he did in those 8 games in the bubble is real. I guess it is. If you've been around this channel for a while, you know that Cameron Payne got the nickname of the Tank Commander. Because when he played for my Bulls, we knew what Cameron Payne was getting minutes. We were going on an 0-10 streak. You know what I'm saying? Which was good for us. Thank you, Cameron Payne. We appreciate your service. But now he's a serviceable backup point guard. More than serviceable. I mean, Chris Paul has been up and down with these injuries in the playoffs, and Cameron Payne has held the ship relatively steady. Of course, if you're going from Chris Paul to Cameron Payne, you're going to lose some drop-off, obviously. But as a backup point guard, Cameron Payne is making himself a lot of money this year. The Thunder. It's Lu Dort. What else can I say? Lu Dort went from a guy that we knew was a great defender, had a pretty solid, I would say, overall playoff last year, and even in Game 7, he had his best career game, and it's unfortunate for him, I'm saying, because I don't really care, that they didn't end up pulling that out when you drop 30 for the first time ever. This season, he put in a lot of work for that jump shot, man. They were leaving him completely open his rookie season. Yeah, we know he can defend, but we ain't trust him on the defensive side on the offensive side of the ball. And well, now you got to. Now you got to. And he's a bowling ball with the OKC Thunder jersey on. Like, it's hard to defend. It's hard to get past them. I love Lu Dort. Wolves, very interesting one. The guy that I decided to pick was Jared Vanderbilt. I've always liked Jared Vanderbilt when he was on his previous teams of Denver and everything, but I didn't expect him to have this much of an impact. I think that he's like the perfect power forward to put, or perfect mold of power forward to put alongside Karl Anthony Towns long term. He's got the lengthiest arms. He's always in the passing lanes. He plays 100% on defense. Those are the type of players you need around Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell. So I guess he didn't necessarily improve as much as some of the other players on his list, but I just wanted to showcase some love to my guy Jared Vanderbilt. It's my video. I can do what I want. The Blazers. I had no idea where to go. I wanted to go Anthony Simons, and maybe I still will. I'm doing this on the fly at this point. Just because even though he got less minutes this season, he scored less points this season, he got to the point where he's a knockdown 3-point shooter. And again, that wasn't what he was drafted to be. So I guess I'll give it to him. I also had CJ on the list because before CJ went down with his injury, he's averaging like 27, 28 points per game. You decide. I don't know. Warriors. Now, I could have put Draymond. Maybe I will. I could have put Wiggins. He turned into a plus defender. But I'm going with Juan Toscano Anderson. That man is everywhere on the court. He's diving, busting his head open, trying to get a loose ball in a game that maybe don't matter as much. But you see, he puts it all in line. He played himself into an NBA contract. Great story, being as old as he is in NBA terms, and finally finding a place. I really respect that. Even though like Draymond and Wiggins could also get some love. Maybe Draymond more than Wiggs, just because Draymond, last year people were saying it was over for Draymond. And now he's top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year candidacy again. And Draymond, again, hey, if you got time, hit a brother up. And lastly, with the Washington Wizards, the guy I decided to highlight was Daniel Gafford. Every Bulls fan will tell you that Daniel Gafford, we knew that Daniel Gafford was a hooper. We knew that he was high energy, block shots, all of that. But the one problem with us and Daniel Gafford is that he needed a guy that can help him get the ball. We weren't going to give Daniel Gafford post touches, but we also don't have playmaking in Chicago. Guess what? We traded him to the team, one of the greatest playmakers in the history of basketball, in Russell Westbrook. Now he can play good defense. He can catch lobs, get offensive rebounds, basically everything he's supposed to do. He's able to do it now. Like, some people think I'm going to be a bitter Bulls fan because we traded him away and he's got better. No, I'm so happy for bro. He's playing with Russell Westbrook right now. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out to Daniel Gafford. So, in my opinion, those are the most improved players from every single organization. Let me know what I got right, what I got wrong. Highlight some of the other guys in the comment section, man, because I know so many players on every team got better this year. I mean, it was a year of a lot of greatness. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all soon.